Okay, I'm going to do a part 3 because I got to talk about protection. Now, in a world like this we live in, there's only one type of protection, and that's personal responsibility. You know, there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is just knowing something. Wisdom is discerning what you know for good or for evil. And, you know, wisdom is a treasure because for some it's revealed, it's innate, and for others it's revealed in experience. And I think this society we live in today suffers from a lack of wisdom. And the Bible, and I'm gonna keep bringing up the Bible, because regardless to who believes it or not, that's what people use. They quote from some scriptures to define principles in life to make their points. The beginning, I think it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. And I can understand that, because if you don't fear the consequences of going against the natural design of creation, if you don't fear that which is written on your heart and your mind, that's woven into the tapestry of your understandings that we all agree on, then you're not wise. Because it doesn't take into account that which is clearly self-evident. I find in this world that people argue about the obvious. Just about the obvious. You know, you could tell people the sun is shining today, invisibly bright. Someone will say, that's your view, that's your opinion, that's your truth. Let me tell you something, people. There's only the truth. It's not my truth, your truth, their truth. There's only the truth. And you're either on the side of it or against it. You know, I think it's 2 Corinthians 13:8. It says you can do nothing against the truth but for the truth. You're going to prove it true whether you learn the easy way or the hard way. And, you know, this society has gotten away from self-evident truth and turned everything into subjective relativism. You know, like if two people saw a rock, like them seeing a rock on that side or me seeing a rock on this side changes the fact that it's a rock. And yes, there is a perspective view of things, but you're still viewing the same objective reality from different perspectives. And I think that's very dangerous. And I'll give you an example. Like in this culture, there's a thing called slut shaming. I'm sure many have heard of it. It's when a woman engages in clearly immoral sexual behavior, counterproductive to her own health and well-being. But you cannot call it out because she needs to feel prideful. She needs to feel confident in her wicked behavior. And the consequences of that wicked behavior have to befall on someone who has no involvement in that behavior. It's interesting that it seems the responsible people of society are deemed to carry the weight of the foolish, when there used to be a time the fools of society were openly and publicly rebuked and shamed for the benefit of the community, to set an example that the Bible calls it a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Or, to put in another analogy, a rotten apple spoils the bunch. Biblically, we are to cut out that piece of leaven to preserve the entire lump. Now, that's not preached in no church today. And I'm going to get on the church, because this false representation of church will allow any fool to call himself a Christian. Any fool, any unbelieving person just wants to feel self-righteous, that gave a homeless person 2 nickels one day, just wants to call themselves a Christian. Now, understanding that being a Bible believer is admitting that you have fallen short, is that you are against God, you have been condemned, and you're reaching out to God to appeal to your own atonement, to your own redeemed life that was lost, or to redeem your life that was lost. There is no self-righteousness that's, let me see, what's the word I'm thinking about? It's supported in Scripture. There are many scriptures against self-righteousness. Romans chapter 10, starting at verse 2 through 5, I believe. And also Isaiah 64:6. All of our righteous deeds are like filthy rags to God. To think that filthy hands such as the ones that we have could offer a holy, just God anything. All we can offer him is our lives, to show the appreciation for his redeeming of us. You know, it's funny, the same things that people argue about the Bible, they argued 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Same thing. The law. Who is the Jew? These arguments are timeless. But it doesn't change the circumstances that we all fit, that we all can agree on. We do not exist in a world where you can balance the scales. Oh, I've done this amount of good to balance out that amount of bad. And even in court and even in our objective lives, that principle does not apply. Because if a murderer who killed a loved one in your family said, well, I fed the homeless and I used to help old ladies across the street, that would not take the fact of the crime they've committed against you. You will want to seek justice, but yet we fault God for being the purest justice there is. God cannot allow being just and holy and righteous a guilty man to go free without somebody paying the fine. And we reflect that in our own lives. You know, people condemn the Bible in ways that are not even biblical. If Jesus Christ of the Bible didn't condemn the religious folk of his day, then why do you celebrate the religious folk of yours? When the reason he condemned them is because of the hypocrisy, the self-righteousness, the lack of seeing that their sin is just as weighty as the man in the lower position. Jesus leveled the playing field among all of us, so that the murderer and the person that hates and angry with his brother without a cause can see that the intent of the heart puts them both before God on the same level, in need of the same grace, grateful to the same atonement given by God, so that God will get all the glory and no man can glory. Because what happens when you allow a man to glory in the world? He becomes corrupt. You can't give a person anything without them showing it up and using it as leverage. You start clapping for somebody, next thing you know, they caught up in some corruption. Why? Because that pride that you built in their ego created a past they believe exonerated them from the same responsibilities they put on you. So I challenge people to realize there's no protection in this world. Begging the government won't help you. The law would never be just according to God. The just would never be to the hardworking and the humble. Good people will never reap the benefits that wicked people get in the wicked world. It will never happen without you selling out your principles and values and selling your soul. It would never happen. Anyone in this world promotes at any level, of any high level, has to compromise truth. They have to agree with things that they intrinsically know are wrong. And they have to put on a deception to fool people to think that it's acceptable. You know? You name anybody in any high position. They're promoting wickedness on some level. Whether it's selling, promotion of greed, getting away with a behavior that is truly objectively wrong, that is detrimental to families and communities, with statistical data to back it up. And that's the part, another thing that gets on my nerves. There's actual factual, empirical evidence to prove against every naysayer against the Bible. The further this society gets from biblical principles, the worse it gets. And yet people want to say God is the problem. Well, for those who believe God and belief in a God is a problem, well, this world is godless. So who is the problem in this world? Because it's not God. And the people that say they worship God, they don't. If you read the Bible, stop believing people and labeling them as something that you cannot confirm by the doctrine. Don't say Christians do bad things all the time. Well, a Bible believer would be honest about that evil deed they did and reconcile with you and admit they're wrong. If they have not done that, I hate to break it to you, they are not a Christian. They're not a Bible believer based on the doctrine the Christianity religion sits on. And I understand why people don't like the word Christianity, because it seems to be a movement that has separated itself from the Bible. Even the word Jesus now, the Bible speaks of people serving a different Jesus. People serve a Jesus of materialism, of vanity, of selfishness. Well, for those who don't know what the Bible says, let me be the first to tell you. Jesus did not die on a cross. He did not give up his eternal weight and glory for a second so that you can have a better car, a bigger house, be popular among your friends, feel good about yourself, and be successful in the world. He did it because our nature was born from an original transgression against our Creator. And all that comes from us will not help us to reconcile ourselves with our God. And the fruit of that original sin is recognized clearly in the visible world that no man or woman can deny. Jesus died because we are not good. Jesus died because our sin, our transgression against his revealed righteous will is against him. It separates us from him. There can be no darkness in light. You put a drop of oil in a cup of water, that water cannot be drunk without causing harm. Cannot be drunk without causing harm. You know, in heaven, there's no room for deceivers. How many of us have been deceived by someone who had the appearance of being a good person, later to be revealed that those signs we ignored actually exposed their true intention? When we think, oh, yeah, it's a good idea to entice people to a supposed house of worship using the same beats and the same activities and behaviors that move the same sinful flesh that cause people to commit the sins. And then we wonder why we have to compromise more and more of the Bible to keep people in this so-called house of God. And now the house of God has been all but gutted and replaced with the world. So now, yeah, you can fill up a church now because the world is in it. And what happens now? You can't tell people the truth because you know what they're gonna say. You didn't bring me in the truth. You led me here based on a lie. So keep feeding me the lie. That lie that I'm not accountable for what I do is why most people are in the church. Oh, people just say, oh, Jesus died for me. No, Jesus died so that you can realize that you on your own are wrong, are evil, unsubmitted to the revealed will of God by his word, recognized in your heart and mind as truth. You don't need a book to tell you that lying is wrong. You don't need a book to tell you that stealing is wrong. And for those who don't want to use the God, belief in God thing, well, if there's no belief in God, then everything is justified by the preference of the person who wants to get what they want. If someone steals from you, that's just the tool and method they decided to use to advance their survival. And if it's all about survival, then everything is on the game and therefore no one can complain. Now you can see how a world based on those kind of lack of values will destroy itself in no time flat, and that's the world we live in today. So this is it for marriage, protection, and children, none of which can exist without the biblical God and his truth and his word. Just think about it. Don't take my word for it. I'm not a preacher. All right, peace.